his first Beatles song. Love Me Do, I think it was, and from there it didn't take him long.
Hello, everybody. Gary the Bomber Bombalicki here with another edition of the Shooting Star Show. And as promised, part 2 of my interview with Dandy Don Whittemore. Hey, how you doing, Dandy Don?
Oh, COVID, oh God, okay.
Hey, so here we are. We got Dandy Don live and in person, and this is a real pleasure to have you here.
It's a real pleasure to be here with you. And I know we're going to talk about the record business. So could I shake hands with you again? Because this go back to 1972, and the famous Wolfman Jack was on my mind. And I showed him what a promo man does when he shakes hands. A normal person shakes hands like that and goes, "Hi, how are you?"
All right.
But in my business, when you shook hands like this was for top 40 radio.
Okay.
This one was for FM radio.
All right.
And then this one was for R&B. So that's how you had that now.
Hey, you know what my handshake is?
Certainly, it's solid, sincere, and not sweaty at all. So I want everybody to know,
But
it does not have,
I have to mention our sponsor
it does
here.
not have sweaty palms.
Our sponsor is Blowback Laser Trainer, recall training, ready to go.
Oh, God.
You're an owner of the Blowback Laser
Well,
Trainer.
actually, I am.
I know.
I put some money into it, and you can, too.
Hey, there you go. So, Don, we're going to do a couple shows here, and we're going to talk about a lot of things, but you and I met kind of in a weird way.
Oh, really? Yes.
Yeah, well, you know, I was on the board of directors at LA Mission College.
Yes, out there, and nobody goes there. Sylmar, California.
That's right. And we were out in Sylmar, and Don was on the board of directors.
Well, how did I get on the board of directors?
Well, how did you get on the board of directors?
I think you asked me.
Did you? Oh, yeah. No, I did.
A typical politician.
He had an ice cream
Nobody
factory.
voted. Nobody voted to put me on the, they just said, you're going to be on it. But I think what you're talking about is that's how politics work, isn't it? We're talking about, I used to be in the ice cream business.
That's
and
right.
I had a catering job.
That's right.
We would serve ice cream sundaes to people.
Right.
And sometimes 1,000 ice cream sundaes in 2 hours. How do you do that?
And they'd answer the phone. We serve sundaes with cherries on top.
Well, if you don't mind me correcting our host, ladies and germ, but it was, "Hi, at Dandy Don's Homemade Ice Cream, we put a cherry on your sundae."
No, you messed it up already.
I know I did. I forgot what it was like. I sold the business to some wonderful people here in the San Fernando Valley. The Dandy Don's Homemade Ice Cream, yeah, we put a cherry on your sundae. That's what we did. We put a cherry on your sundae.
Well, speaking of cherries,
oh yeah,
let's talk about the record business.
Okay,
so
certainly.
tell us about how you got involved in the record industry.
Well, in the record business, I got involved in there because I was working part-time. I was running a nightclub in Cincinnati, and that in the daytime, I had nothing else to do, and I was working part-time on a radio station on the weekends.
Okay.
Right? So,
were you a DJ?
I was a DJ at the radio station.
Man, you were hot.
Oh, I was hot.
You're just hot DJ.
What made me really hot was that I had what we call the FCC first class radio telephone license.
You had first class.
See, he knows.
Wow.
But they're out of business. Nobody cares about a first class.
Right.
What that meant that I could.
You're an engineer.
I was licensed.
Yes.
I was no engineer, but I was licensed to operate any television or radio station in the United States. Ooh. So anyway, that's how I got on the radio.
Okay.
It had nothing to do with talent, believe me.
Okay.
And because I'm very humble. And truly.
It's really humble.
Really humble. Oh my God. Running this nightclub, the guys from Capital Records used to come in, and I liked them. And they liked me because I would give them free drinks and they would give me free LPs. Oh, I thought that was great.
Tell everybody what an LP is. Some people might not even know.
Oh, it's a long playing record. It's vinyl, 12 inches. Yeah, it's 12 inches. Everything is 12 inches in those days.
Right.
And you could, anyway, that's what the Beatles were on Capitol Records. You don't know the label, but you remember the Beatles.
Right.
So I would ask the guys, hey, I'm on the radio. It was a country music station. But do you have records? I'll play them for you.
Okay.
And they'd give me, you know, better albums every
Boy,
time.
you were such a nice disc jockey.
Well, I didn't know how important it was to get records played. And here's a guy saying, hey, I want to play your record. Give me a record to play.
Sound like Alan Freed.
Yeah, well, I did that. And Alan Freed was the guy who invented rock and roll. He was
Cleveland,
from Cleveland.
Ohio.
Hey, you're from Cleveland. This
That's
guy,
right.
he's from Cleveland. That's how he knows
rock and roll capital of the world.
He's a history mate. What is it?
Rock and roll capital of the world.
Oh, it is. That's a rock and roll. The radio.
Some people would debate that.
No,
it is. It started at Public Hall Auditorium, downtown Cleveland.
Yes, but it also has the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in
But
Cleveland.
It got there because of Public Hall.
Well, it got Public Hall, for those of you who don't know the mistake on the lake, we called it, anyway, at Lake Erie is what I'm referring to. And they did that because the Cuyahoga River was on fire one day in 1970 or 69 or something. Yeah, the river caught fire.
My father knows all about it because his crew was the one that started the fire.
Well, you know that oil.
That's a whole nother story.
Oil is lighter than water.
Yeah, all right.
So somebody threw a match on all that gasoline. Oh God. Can we watch our language, or we have to?
No, we have to watch our language.
Okay, well then I won't tell you that.
There's children watching.
Children. Well, you're a child. I'm a
I
child.
am.
Maybe we can get some other children to watch.
We match though. Our hair.
So anyway, to get back to what you asked me,
okay, go on.
question is, so I'm playing these records for these guys, and then they liked me because I would play their records. Not because anyway, like I was talented or any of that stuff, but I played their records.
Right.
And then one day I asked this fellow named Buzz Wilburn, how could I get in the record business? What do I have to do? And for some reason he thought, well, maybe you'd be good for Capitol Records. And gee, that would be great. You think so? So, you know, like so many people talk to you in a bar, a nightclub, it's all bar talk, all right? You know what that stands for, right? So anyway, when that goes, he gets promoted, goes to Hollywood. And he asked, I still think, hey, when are you going to get me in? When are you going to get me? And he said, I think I have an opportunity. You're going to do an interview. And so I did an interview on the telephone with the, what do you call those people? Employment, human resources. Human resources person.
Manager.
Yeah. And at that time I'm doing the interview, and you don't know this because he hasn't mentioned it to you. But I used to also, working in a nightclub, I used to do comedy, you know, jokes and stuff like that.
Does that mean that we're supposed to laugh during the show while you're talking?
Well, it would be a thought, but I realize you're from Cleveland and don't understand that part.
Now, what is this thing about picking on me from Cleveland? You know, a lot of our listeners that are be watching this may be from Cleveland.
Well, listen, we all love Cleveland.
Okay.
But we all need scapegoats.
Okay.
All right. So if you were going to be in the record business and you were going to go somewhere, they'd offer you New York, Chicago, LA, where else was really cool? Seattle, and Cleveland.
And guess where you ended up?
Nobody wanted to go to Cleveland. I'd never been there. But I said, yeah, well, listen. He says, listen, this is the chance. And he said, Chicago, San Francisco, and one other place that was really cool. I forget which one it was, but Chicago and San Francisco are two pretty cool top 10 choices.
Okay.
I got sentenced to Cleveland. I think I bothered somebody. And I went to Cleveland, but that was the interview. He was very concerned. The fellow interviewing me was, would you go back into comedy, nightclubs? I said, no, that's why I'm here. I want to be in the record business. And so I wanted to be with the music because, believe me, ladies and germs, as I said that before earlier, but in 1969 was really great music. Everything was happening. Woodstock had just happened. I think it happened in August, and I got hired in October. I went to work in October, got hired in September. You go through it anyway. So that's how I got in the record business, because you gotta know somebody.
So you left San Francisco, a Bay Area, and went to Cleveland.
No, I left.
You were in Cincinnati.
Oh, I left. That's just another long story. I left.
No, but you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna take a little break here for a second.
Okay.
And we're gonna come back, and we're gonna really start drilling into what went on in that record business with Danny Don Whittemore.
I have a colorful background.
You do, and this is the Shooting Star Show with Gary the
Oh,
Bomber
look at my red
Bombucky
pants. Oh,
and
God.
Danny Don Whittemore.
Okay.
Gary the Bomber Bombucky, and we're back with the Shooting Star with our special guest, Danny Don Whittemore. And now we're going to continue our conversation of Don going to Cleveland and talking about what happened then.
Well, what happened in the biggest thing that with a record guy, promo man, promo woman, we don't care what your gender, anyway, is to get your music played.
Okay.
And with the big goal of everybody is to break a record, break a record. That means that you got it played before anybody else. Is great for the ego, but you just can't do it by yourself. You have to get everybody in the company, locally. Well, not just supporting you, but doing everything, getting them excited, because all you are is a salesman anyway. Is you got to get people hopped up about it.
But you're this young stud in Cleveland, and you want to make a.
Well, I don't know how young I was.
You want to be, recognized.
No, not really.
You didn't care?
Well, no, because I just wanted to keep my job, but I also wanted to make records. Part of it also, the fun is, Gary, is you bring that music to the city and you're working.
Okay.
So that means like in Cleveland, I made the record happen for this guy or that guy. One time, I forget where it was in Cleveland, I think, but I was able to get a record. There are two competitive stations, FM underground stations then. And I was able to get, I think it was a Jefferson Starship or Jefferson Airplane LP. To get that record played on both FM stations at the same time in Cleveland.
That was a hard task because everybody.
So that meant that everybody that buys records is on that, listening to those stations at the same time, playing my record. And when I say my record, if it doesn't get played, I'm in trouble. So it is my record at the time. I don't have anything to do with the talent, any of that. But we were able to do that. But that was one of the great things. Cleveland, for me, was famous for working with Don Imus very, very closely.
Don Imus in the morning. Well, Don Imus in the afternoon.
Well,
he did 10, I think, middays.
Well, that's what you think. He was called Imus in the morning.
Right.
And that meant he came on at 6 in the morning.
Right.
And then he worked until 10 o'clock. And that was before he was a big, giant New York star and did all the drugs and all that stuff. He was just a great guy. He was a great guy in New York, too.
He did 2 stints in Cleveland. He went to New York and came back to Cleveland.
He came back to Cleveland because he was washed up in New York. Nobody would hire him. And he went back to Cleveland and started all over. But of course, by then, he had kicked his cocaine habit, his alcohol habit. He'd lost his wife and 4 kids. They were down at the Lost and Found down there, yes. And the marriage is over. And I will tell you about Imus. He was his most stand-up guy that I met in the business. That this woman that he married had 4 children the first marriage. Before Deidre.
They were her kids.
Her name, I forget her name, but that's okay. Mrs. Imus.
Okay, there you go.
She had 4 daughters, and they were like kids, 10 years old and younger. And Imus married her, and nobody adopted stepchildren except crazy people like Don Imus. And he adopted all 4 of those girls. And from as soon as he told me that, straight to the top with me, because I've come from a divorced family also. But the fact that he did that went on.
That's that's something I didn't know.
Yeah, well, that means that he's going to take care of those kids for life.
Right.
It's not like with the marriage doesn't work out, goodbye and see you later. Right. No, that was Imus. Now another one was Anne Murray.
Anne Murray, okay.
Anne Murray was Canadian. just like my mother was Canadian. My mother was born in Nova Scotia. Anne Murray was born in Nova Scotia, and she was from Halifax. My mother was from Yarmouth. My mother had an old girlfriend that she grew up with that had a daughter my age, younger than me, actually.
Did your mother try to set you up with her daughter?
No,
I'm just
but she told me
curious.
to look her up. Yeah,
Okay, yeah, look her up.
Cooper.
Hey, give her a
name
call.
was
See if she could go out
something
tonight for
Cooper.
a couple drinks.
And well, yeah, and so we got this record by this girl, Anne Murray. She's from Nova Scotia. And I thought, this is great, man. And then I find out more. She's from anyway. So I got to work with that. I got to work that record. But before that, it was just another record that they sent to Capital Records of Cleveland. Have an arrangement, and you have to work what percentage of their records in the United States, or you can't be Capital Records of Canada.
Right.
Okay. So anyway, there's this new guy, 6 months in the business, knows nothing,
That's you.
That's me.
That's you.
Knows nobody, no special favors, nothing.
That seems like so long ago because you know everybody now.
Oh, now,
yeah, I mean, everybody knows you.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, if you can give them free music and they have records and they all love you. Take them out, you get an all expensive, what is it,
paid
card,
account.
whatever it was, expensive, yeah. Air travel card for around the world. Oh God. Anyway, so Anne Murray, we had this record comes out on Capitol, and we're working it. And at the same time, there's a guy on Columbia called Lindsay somebody, and he has a record with Paul Revere and the records. He has a record.
Mark Lindsay.
Yeah, Silver Bird. So now you got Silver Bird by the biggest record company in the business, Columbia, and you got Capitol Records, not so big, Snowbird. Anyway, so I just got some buzz on Snowbird, and I told the guys in the office, this record is getting a lot of business in Pittsburgh. Can we do some in Cleveland? So they start working it in Cleveland. We start getting it on some middle of the road contemporary stations.
Right.
Start getting some play there. All right.
Now it's getting real exciting.
Yeah, now it's exciting. I start working on this station Wixie, which you know.
Wixie 1260.
Yeah, both see that. And that's the deal is that you want to get it on a major top 40 station around the country, right? And then the other ones will follow because everybody follows the other guy. Nobody's that, creative in a sense because they have tight playlists. That means you can only play 15 records, even though it says we play 30 or 40 records. No, they only play 10 or 15 because it's a pop station. Anyway, your guest, Gary's guest,
your guest,
Blowback trainer.
Are you ready to show them?
We got the record played on Wixie, and Anne Murray comes in to say thank you to them and work 2 TV shows. One in Cleveland called Upbeat, which is a big
Don
station.
Webster, WEWS, Channel 5, Cleveland.
And we go to Pittsburgh, and we work this show there. And she, lip syncs her record. Everything is great. And so we come back. We're sitting on the runway in Pittsburgh to fly back to Cleveland. There's a delay. And in those days, they bought you drinks at the airport while you waited there. And not like today. And so she and I each had 3 Jack Daniels in those little small bottles. Ha ha.
And
anyway,
that was a fun. That
was like at 10 o'clock in the morning. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's like you wake up. I don't even know what happened on that trip.
So we get there and we go to Upbeat. The producer of the show, Herman Spiro, says to her that you're going to be a giant star. And it was the nicest thing.
And did everybody call you from Capitol saying, Don Whittemore, you're a hero. You did a great job out there in Cleveland?
I don't think so.
No.
And I'm glad you mentioned that because I was later on in that was 69 I'm talking about with Anne Murray, 70. I think in 72 or 3, I'm at a convention in Dallas, and the president of Capitol Records is a guy that I worked with in Cleveland. He was the sales manager in Chicago, Don Zimmerman, a wonderful guy, Capitol Records president. And he comes up to me at the cocktail party and he said, when you were working that Snowbird record, and Anne Murray and making her a star? And I said, yeah. He said, well, Charlie, the promo VP, tried to get you fired. Huh? He said, yeah, it was not one of their push records. So I was out there in Cleveland doing what you're supposed to do, break a new artist, make more revenue for the company, and, you know, create a revenue
And what do you
stream.
get? The guy trying to fire you.
Tried to fire me because the deal is, on a push record, he's probably getting money for that push record from the manager of the artist or whatever. And the higher it goes up on the Billboard charts, the more money Charlie, who got fired, well, stayed hired, he got fired.
Well, listen, so you had Anne Murray. Let's finish off Cleveland. So who else was in Cleveland you're working with? Because Upbeat, just to go back to Don Webster for a minute.
Grand Funk Railroad.
Grand Funk, the Upbeat, everybody came to Cleveland to be on the Upbeat show,
Yep.
because it was the premier show that was bicycled around the country as the premier pop show of its day.
Yeah, well, they had things like, you know, this was not a network show like not Upbeat, but
It was an ABC affiliate.
no, yeah, it was, but the
Scripps Howard Network.
Hullabaloo, was that one of the ones?
Hullabaloo is our friend Humble Heart.
Well, anyway, those guys, this was a great. They played everybody on it. Anyway, they're off the air now.
So
Upbeat.
Grand Funk Railroad, what's going on with that?
Grand Funk Railroad, where Terry Knight, the manager, passed away, rest his soul, was trying to make them into a hit act. And he was selling everybody at Capital. But while they were in Cleveland, they're making their first LP.
Right.
And so Terry Knight liked me, and we went out, he took me to a boxing match, all that stuff. But I got to go to the studio while they were making the LP, the Grand Funk's first album. It was really great being buddies with them, all that stuff. Mark Farner and we took them all out to dinner, and I ordered a margarita, and he said, what's that? I said, you never heard of margarita? And he said, no. So I taught Mark Farner of Grand Funk Railroad, the lead singer, what a margarita was. So he and I had margaritas there, and people were looking at us because we all had long hair, not me, but they all had long hair. And so Terry Knight wanted me to tell these guys that were looking at us funny that these guys are the Beatles. That's how people were so out of touch in those days.
That's funny.
Anyway, that's a couple of Cleveland stories, and then there are other ones.
Well, you know what we're going to do is we're going to take a break.
Okay.
And then we come back, we're going to talk about people like David Bowie. We're going to talk about John Denver. We're going to talk about Harry Nilsson and many more here on the Shooting Star Show. Gary the Bomber Bombalicki and my guest, Dandy Don Whittemore.